Hey there guys, so today I wanted to do a video covering my top 5 favorite travel moments from 2017. I was going to do like a compilation montage style video, but I thought doing something like this would be a little bit better because I could choose like specific days and specific moments that I really enjoyed and that were really great and give a bit more context and background behind, you know, the story. This is more going in chronological order, not really like my favorite or anything like that. But yeah, first one was hiking to Karlstein Castle in the Czech Republic. I'm probably not saying that properly, but I'll put the name up on the screen so you can, you know, see how it's spelled. Anyway, when I was in Prague, I ended up meeting some people who lived in Prague through a cousin of mine on Facebook. Now, I ended up hanging out with them several times during both of my visits to Prague on my trip to Europe. But on one of the days, we ended up taking a train to the town of Karlstein. I hope I'm saying that right. And there's a castle there. And you kind of like, the train like arrives in the town, you walk up through the town, and all up the hill up to this really cool castle. And once you get up there, it's like the views are, you know, absolutely spectacular. But there's also a lot of like hiking trails and stuff that we did around there, like cool streams, a lot of like hills, and honestly, it's just like a beautiful location. And of course, the castle was pretty awesome as well. But yeah, that was really cool. I would highly recommend checking that out. And it's easily one of my favorite moments of the year, just because, I mean, it's the first time I've ever been to like a legitimate castle. So number 2 isn't a particular day or one particular thing I did. It was actually the entire 8 days I spent in Budapest during my trip. So after my first visit to Prague, I ended up taking a bus to Budapest, and I ended up meeting up with a couple of other travelers, Marie and Andy. Marie has her own channel called Dream in Autumn, and it's really cool. But we ended up meeting up in Budapest because they were living there at the time, and I was visiting. So, yeah, we ended up, you know, connecting through YouTube, and then we ended up meeting up there. And we met up one day and kind of just hung out, and then we just ended up hanging out like the entire time I was in Budapest, like every single day I was there. And we did a lot of cool stuff, you know, explored the Buda side of the city a bit. Also went up to Szentendre, which is like a day trip you can take by train. It's about a half hour outside of Budapest, and that was really awesome. And yeah, we just hung out and just had a good time. Like, they're just really cool people, and I mean, since then they've been traveling all over Europe, and I believe they're going to New Zealand in February, if I'm not mistaken. It was cool to get to a new city like that and get to like meet up with, you know, some fellow travelers who were a similar age as me and were doing, you know, a similar thing. Okay, so for number 3, we're gonna be jumping all the way across the pond over to Vieques, Puerto Rico. Now, I lived on the island of Vieques, Puerto Rico for 3 months up until Hurricane Maria hit. Anyway, during my time in Vieques, a friend of mine, Caleb, bought a scooter while he was there. He worked at the same hostel I worked at. And, there were multiple times where we like take the scooter and go on like adventures across the island, which was just amazing. But there was one particular time, at the end of August, the last like adventure I took with the scooter on Vieques. I ended up going by myself, and I ended up driving kind of like all over the island. I ended up driving to a lighthouse called the Puerto Fierro Lighthouse, which is on the south side of the island in the National Wildlife Refuge there. And then I ended up driving all the way to the other side of the island and driving up to the highest point, which was that was an adventure. But the highest point's almost 1,000 feet above sea level, and the road going up there was pretty crazy. It was really steep, and honestly, I don't think I would have made it if I would have had 2 people on the scooter, which, you know, a lot of the cases we'd go on like scooter trips and we'd take, you know, 2 people would go. I went by myself this time, which was probably good because I don't think I would have made it with 2 people because the scooter kind of struggled to get up there just with me on it. But that was a really incredible day. For number 4, we're going to be jumping ahead all the way till after Hurricane Maria, after I moved to San Juan on the main island. And actually, I think it was on a Halloween. Me and my friend Caleb, same guy who I ended up borrowing the scooter from on Vieques, and another friend of mine, Megan, all 3 of us were volunteering at the hostel there. And we ended up taking this freaking van over to Cueva del Indio, which is this really cool like cave system on the north coast over by Arecibo. And you know, I'd never been over there, but we ended up, man, it was just epic. Like, the cliffs over the water with all the caves and stuff are just insane, and it just kind of like blew my mind. It was one of the coolest places I went to while I was in Puerto Rico, and honestly, I'd go again because it was just so beautiful. And yeah, we just had a great time. We hung out there for a couple hours and just explored around the caves and the coastlines and everything, and it was just really cool. And number 5 is going to be our West Coast Puerto Rican road trip. Me, Megan, and Carl, which were 2 of the other volunteers from the hostel that I worked at in San Juan, we ended up driving over to the West Coast for 2 days, and we made multiple stops. But the first day we ended up driving over to the West Coast to this waterfall, and I honestly don't know the name of the waterfall, but it took us forever to get there. We were like driving down all these back roads, like these really narrow mountain back roads, which was really cool but kind of stressful because I was the one driving. And you know, we finally got to this waterfall, and we didn't even know if we were in the right place, but we ended up, you know, getting back there and walking down this giant hill, and you could kind of see the waterfall once you came over this hill, and they had this small observation deck there. You could kind of see the waterfall, so yeah, we were really excited then. Ended up walking down and you know, swimming in the pool at the bottom of the waterfall and like jumping off the rocks around it, which was really awesome. For the waterfall, we ended up driving from there over to Rincon, which is a town on the West Coast. It's just a small town, but it's actually very popular for like surfing and everything. And we ended up kind of getting to the town. I think it was about an hour and a half drive from the waterfall to Rincon. We walked around the little town, which I didn't feel anything of for whatever reason. And then we ended up driving out to this little lighthouse, which is just outside of the town. Checked that out, and that was just really stunning, honestly. And it was kind of really cool to be in an area that was not as heavily impacted as from the hurricane as, you know, the East Coast down was. I mean, obviously still was impacted pretty heavily, but not as bad. Then we ended up driving down to a beach that was right down the street, and we ended up camping on the beach there, but the road that you normally drive down to camp on to get to the beach that you camp on washed out from the hurricane, so we had to like carry all our stuff down to the beach, which was fine. It was cool, but you know, ended up just camping on the beach there, hung out, had a fire. You know, I ended up, you know, we set up a tent there, and I ended up sleeping in a hammock between 2 trees, which was just awesome. So that was day 1 of our road trip. On day 2, we ended up, you know, packing up our campsite. We hung out at the beach there for a few hours because, you know, it was just a really nice area. And then we ended up driving down, you know, down the West Coast, down to Cabo Rojo, which is on the southwest side of the island. And we ended up going to the Cabo Rojo Lighthouse, which was probably the most stunning place I had been in all of Puerto Rico. I'd say it is my hands down my favorite place in all of Puerto Rico. And it's just, you'd have to go there to see it, but it's just stunning. It's basically like they got this lighthouse on top of, you know, these cliffs that are just like towering over the ocean. And I mean, they're probably, you know, 80 to 100 feet above the water. And then you just got like surrounded by this nice turquoise, green, blue, you know, ocean basically. And there's this really cool beach there called Playa Sucia, I believe it's called. You know, we just hung out there for a while before we ended up, you know, to where the lighthouse was, which was just, the views were incredible, and there were iguanas everywhere, which was really cool. And after we were done at Cabo Rojo, we ended up driving slightly east over to a town called La Peguera, and we ended up taking a boat, which was like $10 for each of us both ways, which wasn't too bad of a deal, out to an island called Mata Legata. And it was basically this little tiny like Mangrove Island, you know, in the Caribbean Sea. And it was just absolutely beautiful. You know, there were like iguanas running around and cool birds and fish, and they had this nice swimming area that they made, you know, like a, you know, walkway around and everything. And that was just really cool. Just a nice, peaceful, quiet way to end our, you know, Puerto Rican road trip. And I don't know to say, like, I did a lot of stuff when I was in Puerto Rico for 6 months. But that road trip was probably the highlight of my entire trip there. After we were done there for a few hours at Mata Legata, we ended up taking the boat back to La Peguera and drove from La Peguera back to San Juan, which was like a 2.5-hour drive. So those are my 5, you know, top 5 favorite ones. And there are tons of other moments, and you know, that were just incredible this year in Europe and in Puerto Rico. And yeah, those are just a few of my favorite travel moments from 2017. There's like so many more that I could talk about, but it'll take me hours to you know, just tell the stories behind some of the stuff that happened, especially with the hurricanes and everything that hit Puerto Rico. I was there for, you know, both Irma and Maria, and they were pretty intense. But that's a story for another time. 2017 is basically over, and 2018 I think is going to be really awesome as well, so I can't wait to share some of my adventures from 2018 from wherever I'm going to be in the world. I think it'll be a lot of fun. Anyway, see you guys next time.